the points I need to rebalance that.
This class, it's the opposite.
Mhm.
You used to have 50.
And I cut it down.
25, and then that class, you got 50 questions, but it's only 25 points.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there going, okay.
I need to go back and look at that. That means I misbalanced it.
Yeah. Well, I know you're real busy.
Yeah.
Dr. Fitzgerald said you're like a treasurer of some group now that you
Yeah, that's SWAC J.
did much research.
Southwest Regional Association of Criminal Justice. If I just did SWAC J. These aren't all of my emails, but you'll see here, I went through 100 out of many, and some of these have 30 emails with them each. I've only been doing this for the last 6 weeks. Yeah, that's how bad it was. It was horrible. So that's coming through. I sent myself something. Yeah, that's what I want. So we need to come in here. How are you today? All right, so let's go.
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. We're gonna do some fun stuff. So we start going off into took a little longer for it to recognize tie, I guess. All right, so today we're gonna go and move into some politics stuff. And so with the politics stuff, we get a lot of fun. And I don't know if I want to be here or if I want to move and use the board. I don't know. I'm just gonna play this one by ear, I guess. Let's see here. So we're down in chapter 11. Give me the PPT. Ah. All right, so here we are here. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Share screen. Share screen. All right. So we moved away from violent crimes into political crimes, terrorism, which is also violent. This is one of the interesting points at which you get to see some of the nature related to politics really start to be clarified to some degree, that it is very much a very relativistic issue, and that those in power definitely do get to define it to some degree. What is criminal, what isn't, and who gets to label whom as what. Big issues in our society in general. If you just think about terrorism in the last 20 years, it's, heck, you go back 25 years, it's not going to be the same image of what people see today, but has it really changed? Not much. Well, we're talking about terrorism. We probably should talk about things going on in the world. So what is going on in the world?
Well, you consider terrorism, you consider what's going on in Israel terrorism.
Between Israel and Iran, there is a heavy element of that there because
they attacked them on October 7th. Okay, was that terrorist or was that?
It's really hard to tell, isn't it?
Was that informal?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's like who's aggressing who, who's defending what, and then what's the purpose of it? The purpose is religious. It's governmental, but it's also religious. One of the first things they'll probably usually go into the definitional stuff. I can't remember what they start talking about here. Of course, it's not moving on now.
Terrorism.
Yeah, usually that's what they start talking. Wow, this computer's moving slow. Here's what they start talking about. Illegal acts designed to undermine existing government and threaten its survival. Can lose violence and non-violence. May stem from religious, ideological sources, gray area between conventional outlawed behavior. Most political criminals, even those who profit, consider themselves patriotic and altruistic. So we should probably talk about the definition of political crimes, because I don't see that in here actually.
Terrorism is considered.
Yeah, so anything that's done with the purposes of affecting politics, anything there is where you start getting into the nature of it. So this it's the if you're dealing with terrorism, it's acts of fear or violence that are meant to and cause certain reactions that have either political, religious, or some other ideological connotations. Anytime we're dealing with politics, we're dealing with basically closely held beliefs, things that people hold so close that you don't really get much closer to religious for some people. I mean, that's literally at the very foundational bit of who they see themselves as. You can't, when it comes to the base of the pillar, it's like that's it. So these are the most extreme differences that you'll see in people that are the most difficult to challenge because it is such a closely held belief. It'd be like saying, you're going to make fun of religious characters. It's like, yeah, if you're doing that to anyone who's of that religion, they're not going to appreciate that. And some religions will actually say that that's a death sentence right there. So it's like that's how extreme it is. It's like, is it just a mild irritant or is it a death penalty kind of thing? Depending on where you're at, it can be wildly different. Here, I don't know if I want to talk about this just yet about becoming a political criminal. Maybe I will start there. I do like how they did this like that. Like, okay, what's going on in the world? If you look at the different stages here, what's going on? Is it right? Is it fair? Whose fault is it? And if it's someone's actual fault, or if you were able to identify a group of people as responsible for it, it's very easy to shift off to where you see them as evil. And then, well, what you can do there for your own justifications is wildly open. When we start talking about political crimes, what do you guys want to talk about? Because there's a number of different areas we can take this into. We can start with the monotonous and mundane of everyday reality, or we can deal with the wild stories that you never really hear anything about. I'm more one who likes to deal with the mundane because monotony. So I'm going to show you some stuff. Criminology. Census voter registration. Boom. Yeah, so we'll start here. Things that are fair or not fair have some perceptions of unfairness. Voting is one of the first ways that we try to equalize people. No, not everyone is equal, and where you live determines to some degree how much your vote actually matters. But the first thing is we want people to vote, right? If you have the ability to vote, you should have the choice at least. And so over time, they've been making more and more voting and registration data available. This is one, I popped this out here because this is related to voter turnout in the last election. So second highest for non-presidential elections since 2000. And if we start talking about that last election in 2020, it's like that is literally the biggest election in history. One of the most interesting things to me from a numbers perspective is, we had a number of significant changes in how we do things, but well, whenever we go that route in seeing, trying to get people to vote, there's lots of opportunities there. And so usually what I like to ask two questions to begin with, so people get an idea for how novel everything's been in the last 20 years, how much information's out there. Who has received the most popular votes in US history?
I don't really answer that question, but it's Biden.
Yeah, that would be Joe Biden. Who received the second highest number of votes in US history? That would be Trump in the same election. And the fact that you have number one and number two coming out of the same election in and of itself is one of those things that should just stop and look at that. It's like, that's how much people actually, to some degree, moved, or maybe there are some issues in those numbers. And so we start dealing with the initial perceptions of things that are going on, and whether it's is it something in the process? Is there something that's flawed there? Are there problems? And then is there someone who's trying to purposely take advantage of those loopholes and those things like that? And basically everybody tries to all of the time.
Biden and Joseph Stalin said it's not votes that count, it's ones that count the votes.
That's true. That's true. And so there's a section in the PowerPoint, I think, where it starts talking a little bit about interference in political processes. Election fraud involves illegal interference in political process, whether it's intimidation, disruption, misinformation, registration, buying votes, all of those things. All of those things happen at massive scales. To kind of talk about that, well, first of all, let me show you this. So this is Help America Vote Act of 2002. So this goes back 22 years. Okay, an act to establish a program to provide funds to the states to replace punch card voting systems, establish election Jeffrey Neighbors, excellent. Okay. We'll wait for him to come in because I don't see. It still say he's connecting. Has he got sound? I hear woof.
How are you doing?
That sound excellent. Hey, all right. So here's what we've been talking about so far. We moved into chapter 11. It's political crimes. And so a couple slides in, election fraud. So we start at the very base, the mundane kinds of things. And so if you're dealing with frauds of that kind of nature, first it's who's in these positions before we get to define who gets to determine who's doing things of what kind of nature. Here are some of the processes that are involved, whether you're doing intimidation, disruption, misinformation, those types of things. To kind of give you an idea about the history of voting in this country, it's like if you think back to turn of the 20th century, immigration and all of those types of things, realize that whether we're talking about social disorganization theory in Chicago immigrants, or whether you're talking about the practices of taking those immigrants in Chicago, giving them places to stay, using public officials, basically your police force, to move those people. And while they're doing that, at the time, they were also essentially the political element, like the police themselves were essentially an arm of politics. They would tell people how to vote. You know, they would say, here, you know, we provide all these things for you. You know, here's who's doing it. You know, you should probably keep those people in power. So it was all a very corrupt process. Now what we have is we have a lot more information, a lot more people, and a lot more difficulty. To give that an example, this act right here, this is the, what was it called again? Help America Vote Act, HAVA, 2002. So this is all 2002. So you might not remember was it 2000s, the hanging Chad? Was that 2000s? Oh, Jesus. That's how old I am. You guys probably weren't even alive for that. The time's a hell of a thing. But yeah, so it's like, if you're not familiar with that, back in Bush Gore, there was a whole bunch of issues with the way they did voter cards is they literally, it would create a ticket, they would punch through them. So that way you could scan it in where the holes were is where it would read. Well, there's the phrase dangling Chad. If you never heard that one, thank goodness for that, because basically what it is that little punch, if it didn't get cleanly punched out, the thing might have an issue reading the actual document, reading the actual card. And so that's why they started doing this. Many components to this. You can see this is 66 pages long, right? And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. If you want it, you can look this up, right? And so kind of get an idea for, we have to have a way to count votes. We have to have ways to tally votes. I'm trying to remember, there was a historical issue. Oh my goodness, this was like 100 years ago off in was it Southeast? I wish I could remember the state. If I could find it, if I remembered it off the top of my head, I'd grab it and share it with you guys. Because basically what happened was over 100 years ago, they had an issue with voting in a small rural area where there was definitely corruption. They were taking all the the ballot boxes and just basically stealing them. They had to have the population in the area take up arms. They raided an armory, a literal police armory, to literally protect those ballot boxes from anyone who would come by. And as a result, actually, the people who were in power ended up leaving power whenever they're able to count those votes. And so it's like there are all kinds of times where people do all kinds of wrong things just for that power. Most of the time, it's not going to be at that federal level because there is so many, there's just so much space there to have that kind of authority or control over something to be able to fudge those numbers enough. Takes a lot of concerted effort, a large number of people across a large number of places. That being said, both sides do it. They do. And we can talk about that a little bit too. But used to, well, let me put it this way. Whenever you get to the local level stuff, that's where you have the most opportunity for corrupt practices because everything is so much closer to home. You have much fewer people, much more control over it. So that's just something to keep in mind for this discussion. This is going to be the most watered down kind of version where you'll see some potential issues. Okay. Boom. Next one. Help America Vote Act of 2002. So here's where they give you a little bit more information on it. President Bush signed this in. Federal legislation is responsible for voting irregularities during the 2000 federal election. created many new mandates, state levels. $3 billion in federal funding to meet those mandates. Primary allegations of voting irregularity. I can't say that word. Votes not being properly counted. Votes being erroneously omitted from voter registration rolls. Eligible voters being turned away from the polls. Right? We fixed those problems. If you're listening to chatter online, you probably heard something related to this statement on voter registration ID requirements. There have been recent inaccurate reports about voter registration processes and ID requirements in Texas. Please see statement from Secretary of State. It's totally inaccurate that 1.2 million voters have registered to vote in Texas without a photo ID this year. Ooh, that is a really big number. That's this year. In the first 4 months of this year, this number is being thrown around. We'll get into that in a minute. Okay. Truth is, it's gone up 60,000 people in the last 4 months. That's the number of people, same time frame, 65 in 2022, or 104,000 in 2020. Right? Well, federal law allows registrants to vote without a photo ID. Texans must actually show to vote. 1.2 million Social Security Administration's website is supposed to report the number of times states have asked to verify an individual's Social Security number. If it's incorrect, we're working to determine why there's such a large discrepancy. What are they talking about? Correct. All right. So here's where we start getting information. So that data, the Help America Vote Act of 2002. Fact sheets, table of contents. What is HAVA? What is HAV? What is HAV? To comply with the requirements of this section, developing a verification system in 2004, states must only submit a request to us for new voters who do not present a valid driver's license during the voter registration process. So this is how many times people have tried to register to vote, not how many people. Okay. So what do those numbers look like? We'll go with the first week of the year. Total transactions, 400, right? Unprocessed transactions, that's the ones where they haven't done anything with. Non-matches, meaning no match at all. Total matches, single match alive, single match deceased. Here are the dead people. You had 130 that were checked in Alabama in the first week of the year, right? You keep going, keep going. 21,000, that's a big number for a week. 2,000, 4,000, 8,000 in Illinois, 2,000, 3,000, 90,000 in Missouri, right? New Jersey, New York. New York's only got 1,000, right?
Yeah, but what month is that?
Texas, 80. This is 1 week. January, 1 week, first week of January, right? And so what you see is that there were 80,000 requests, not individuals. So we don't know how many times people are going up in here, how many multiple times people are going in here. It's that same arc that you see with crime, people and their problems, right? You're going to see that same thing where there's going to be a smaller number of people that are causing a larger number. But to what degree is the question? Because is this something where someone is doing this as a concerted effort to fudge the numbers? Because small changes add up over time. And so basically what you see here is in the first week of the year, you get all the way down here. Yeah, that's 1 week. 200,000 came through, 56 were total matches. Actually, we should say, look at this number right here. 177 were total matches. That 56 is non-matches. So you had 56,000 times where there were no, this person doesn't get to vote. 5,000 that they were dead, right? Yeah. That's 1 week. Next week, 13. Alabama, Arizona, another 30. 5,000 there, 10,000 there. 48,000 there. 29. 90. So another 200,000 plus, another 60, another 6,000 people dead. Right. And these are the public systems that you know, what do I want to say? I'm not going to say that. This is the public side. So this is what they publicly publish. And so without more information, you start to wonder what exactly is driving these things. And so here's what I'll tell you a little bit about it. Total number of verification requests during the time period. So another 200,000. Right. Now, if I look the next week, next one. Right. 330,000. 4,000. 90,000 again. 50,000. Texas, 66,000. Right. It's an additional 60, about 5,000 that weren't. About 5,000 that were dead. Right. Like someone's trying to manipulate this, maybe. I don't know. I didn't go through all these. Unprocessed. So those that could not be processed because it was missing, that's 0. Right. Non-matches. No match, the last 4 or date of birth. At least one match in our system was this, records in the name, 4 digits, date of birth. Match is alive. Yeah. They're dead. Match is all alive. Each indicator matches that they're alive. All indicators match that they're deceased. So if you see multiple factors, well, let's actually look at that. Okay. Multiple matches deceased. Okay. So for those 5,000 that were dead, only one out of that entire week across all 50 states, out of all of those actions there, only one of those did all of those come back to say that that person was indeed actually dead. So you could have errors where, hey, maybe that person isn't dead, or, hey, these systems aren't tracking very well who's alive and who's dead. Okay. At least one alive, at least one deceased. That's a smaller number, but it's still 20 times larger than that number. One of those funny things with numbers, right? And so this is week ending in January 20, ending in January 27. And you keep going. 700, 34,000, 66,000, 50,000, 125,000. Yeah. Yeah, there is a concerted effort in these areas. Yeah. Yeah. And so you got both sides who are out there.
Pennsylvania was a state that, well,
Mm-hmm.
it was really close. I'm not gonna say it more than that. But they're in Illinois, I don't know why they're bad in Illinois.
Yeah. Every county, aside from those that are St. Louis, Springfield, or Chicago, are red. And so it's urban versus rural. It really is. And so what we need to do is talk a little bit about some of those politic things that are taking place. So canvassing for votes is something that is illegal in some states, but not in all states. Canvassing for votes is where you go and you ask people for their votes, where you do this thing right here. How much for your vote? Right? Came in the mail. We filled it out for you. How about you just let me fill it out? Right? That happened a lot. A lot. And so if you think about the nature of red versus blue, this is a system that will benefit the urban areas more, which tend to be more blue. And so you'll see those numbers and they will track more blue than they will red, because if I've got to canvass for votes, I come to one location, a housing development, I can get dozens of votes. If I'm in a rural area, I've got to go to that house way over there. About 3 miles out that way is the next house, kind of thing. And so that's one of those that won't work as well. Okay. Abuse of office, public corruption, public trust, abuse of position, officials, private sector. So that's where we start getting into the liabilities, legal liabilities for people who are operating in governmental positions. And so long as they're acting under the color of their duty, their position, that's where you get into this area.
So this is kind of subject.
Mhm.
They had what they call Zuckerberg, put those drop boxes all over and they paid people. Is that a political crime or what?
Mm. Okay, well, that's one of those things that you get in some really interesting things.
They outlawed it.
Hmm.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, so if you start getting into the whether it's the Facebook information or even Google's worse. What you end up with are donations in kind that aren't being claimed as donations in kind.
Zuckerberg put 450 million private dollars
Mhm.
into the election
Yes.
system, and he ran all this stuff.
Yeah.
To these companies. And
Oh, yeah.
To me, that's illegal.
Yeah, that's one of those things that should have been a donation in
Well,
kind.
Depending on who wins, it's a political thing.
Yeah,
You know, the person that won, if they won, they're not gonna say nothing about that.
yeah. So we talk about motivations behind it. It's because you have two parties that both want power. What can be done to prevent it? Um, hmm, that's a really hard question. If you start digging into it, you know, how far does it go? How much? It's like looking at the overlaps between government and corporations. You know, I've talked about communism and capitalism. And if they're gone wonky, it's like they don't really matter any difference. They're the exact same damn thing, right? This one I don't know if it'd pull up, but let's do this real quick. This is one that was during the Democrat convention, the debates. Tulsi. This is one that buried in Google. You have an organization. If you have an organization that is in bed with the government and they're doing things that have actions and direct effects on political candidates, have we already crossed that line? It's like, yeah. What they did with her is they suspended her advertising account. They actually buried her search results after one of the debates where she came out as a hard hitter. They took her own campaign and they buried it 3 pages into her own search results. So if you search for her, she'll actually pop up, but yeah, 3 pages down. So 75 pages, or 75 results in kind of thing. It's like, yeah, that's illegal. That should be illegal. Right. But what happens here? Dismissed. Right.
I don't get why they didn't like her. I think she's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably something like that because yeah, when you start on the politics thing is you got the people who are speaking to their side and they tend to go off to more one side or the other. And then as you get closer to the actual general election, usually they start coming more towards the middle. But the last couple elections, they've not really been doing that. They just kind of keep speaking to their crowd.
Like people that talk common sense.
Yeah, that's
It
common.
doesn't matter what makes sense.
All right, so delving mail-in voting, that kind of stuff. So those requests for mail-in votes. We should probably talk about that a little bit because what we had were due to the number of extreme sort of the COVID stuff, we had a whole bunch of processes that were revised and to kind of have an idea of what was going on there. We'll spend a little bit of time on that. So, you guys familiar with the case of Texas versus Pennsylvania from the last election? Basically what it was is Texas filed a lawsuit against Pennsylvania for violating its own constitutional processes. The only problem is both sides of the aisle agreed with those changes for COVID. It wasn't until after the fact that they started moving on this that it's already, well, it wasn't until you lost that you filed this lawsuit. So they dismissed it on standing, even though what was it? It's not demonstrated, recognizable, conducts in its election. Yeah, I don't care about that. Other motions were dismissed as moot, and that's it. No, no views expressed, nothing like that. If I were to say, boom, this right here.
Well, they were basically saying that
You had a constitutional violation that completely upended their results. Correct.
They just made some deal with.
So they should have gone through the proper constitutional processes, amended their constitution, which they did not do because there wasn't time. And they needed to do a revote, but they didn't. They're not going to do any of that. Yeah, because it's just too much. Now, as a result, what ended up happening is that lawsuit. Missouri.
I don't think the Supreme Court wants to get involved with that stuff.
No, because this is one that could split things. If you look right here, what you see is that fracture. There's 6, 7 states here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Illegal and unconstitutional elections. The states joining with Texas agree. They exploited it, and no one's doing anything about it. It's like you violated your own constitution. We should stop treating that like a piece of paper.
Well, that happened in more than Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So it's they listed here the states right here. It's like Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, all of which were battleground states. All of them had unconstitutional processes, that kind of thing. And so it's like, yeah, you got a whole bunch of problems here. And so what do we end up with is we end up right here where it's no, I don't want to go back to that one. I'm going to go right here. Okay. Who's in charge? Who gets to make those determinations? And if it's something where everything's at play, it becomes a very, very dangerous situation where who knows what's what, right? You see those numbers go up, so you can see that there are definitely concerted efforts. That'd be like saying the number of people who were charged for gathering people's votes, paying for people's votes. It's like in Texas, you had one lady who was literally selling her services to get votes to literally both red and blue. You know, it's like literally she doesn't care. It's just give me the money kind of thing. And so
that was registration, right?
Yeah, so registration fraud is where you start getting the people who are dead, the people who are, and I should probably talk about the have us thing. What that means is they don't have a driver's license ID or anything like that. They're using the last 4 digits of their social security number, which you can get as any type of worker, whether you're here legally or not. And so the big question is are there any potential opportunities for those who shouldn't have votes to get votes? And it looks like that door could have some openings to it. And that's one of those things. It's like, yeah, people are here, but
Is the sad thing about it is it doesn't prove your citizenship. It
Mm-mm.
doesn't look like there's
Mm-mm.
no, how do you?
but you sure get those numbers, don't you?
Driver's license doesn't say if you're a citizen.
Mhm. No, well, no, not necessarily, but you know, you can check all that stuff in the systems. It'd be like when you start playing the numbers games, it's like all the videos and things like that from the night of the election, the last one where you can see people bringing in carts of votes. And it's like, how many of those? It gives all of the appearances of something that's not real. It's like those could have been real votes that were collected appropriately. Why are they all being brought in after hours kind of thing? It's like, so you got all these, well, this was one that was out of, I believe that one was out of Michigan, where you could see, literally it was a group of people that are bringing in literally hand carts of votes in boxes, like big carts. And it was crazy.
They had that video of that in Georgia, and they showed up running them through more than one. They actually showed a video.
Yeah.
Of it. They said, don't believe that. It's not, it's not true.
Yeah.
Run them through, and then run them through again.
Mhm.
Brought them out in front of this table, and it's all this weird, and it was a video.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But everybody's in that.
And so it becomes a question of, is this actually the process? Is this misinformation? Is it you're not communicating well? Is it something that the system itself, if you run those same things through there, are they serialized that where it will count them only for that one? Or is it something that it's just counting? It's like they're not giving that information. They don't tell you that stuff. And so you end up with a lot of issues. Treason, espionage, state political crime, those types of things. All right, so treason, we all know what that one is. Espionage, I don't know if I really want to get into that so much. I want to focus on state political crime for a second. Okay. So it mentions here using torture, that kind of stuff. What is it I want to show you? So state political, I know what I want to show you.
So treason's pretty high bar.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the difference between spying and treasonous acts is what this is kind of kicking into. And it talks about political crime and torture, that kind of stuff. What I wanted to show you was something that is how many slides are on here? Well, it's sort of like the and so torture is an extreme form. It's like that. That's what is it going to next? Defining terrorism. We'll get in that in a second. Okay. maybe this will, I'll do one that overlaps with it because this is one that's kind of interesting. So this is one I talk, anytime that we talk about treason, state actions and terrorism, and more al-Awlaki. Actually, I think I got this in my email. Let's see if I've got it in my email. Boop, boop, boop. Actually, no, I'll just do it. Yeah, that name is familiar. I'll just do a search on it. Lessons. This is from 2015. This is a terrorist. 4 years after the United States assassinated a radical cleric. I don't care about that. Anwar al-Awlaki, the smiling voice. First American citizen to be hunted and killed without a trial by its own government since the Civil War. The hell is that? This is an American citizen. We killed them outside of this country for no other reason than they were involved in terrorism. That's a United States citizen. Why was there no trial? Okay. That's Anwar al-Awlaki's son. Alleged to be operation leader of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, was killed by a CIA drone strike 2 weeks prior to killing. No, that's Anwar was killed 2 weeks before they killed his son. His son also a U.S. citizen. Okay, we getting there yet? How about this one? Daughter. Anwar Nora al-Awlaki, 8-year-old American citizen, killed January. Yeah. Drone strike ordered by that one. Right. I'm trying to remember the time frame for this one. This was ordered, but it was actually under. And so that's one of those things. It's like, yeah, it does cross those lines. It's not red versus blue. If you go back to Bush, it's not going to be red versus blue either. It's going to be a lot of those actions there. It's just this is the one where it's a U.S. citizen.
Sometimes I don't think everybody knows. The president doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, and it's going to be a mess. And so here what we have is now we have 3 U.S. citizens that have all been killed by executive order, essentially, by an executive who gave an order.
And probably signed off on
Yeah, they did. And so it's like that's it. Who signs off on that? Yeah, there you go. Presidents do that. So presidents get to kill people, their own citizens, when they're outside of the country. State crime. Are we there again? Yeah, we're right back there again. Next one.
Does the Constitution give them immunity from prosecution?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but there are ways to remove that kind of thing.
It's a political thing. Who's in charge?
It's always a political thing. And this is where you really get into it, is terrorism. It's like, the state-sponsored crime, the state fear created by torture and death and stuff like that. At the same time, you got people who are doing it in other directions.
The only thing that they did by opening the door to try and Trump with all this stuff is if the Supreme Court comes back and said that you don't have amended immunity, people could go back and try Obama for that.
Yeah, you could, yeah.
Take people out that were presidents. They're opening up a can of worms they don't want to open up.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of issues with that they're opening up. And so defining illegal use of force against innocent people to achieve a political objective. Yeah, usually they'll say political, ideological, religious, social, whatever, that kind of thing. Difference between guerrillas, insurgents, and revolutionaries. Basically, what you're talking about is guerrillas are very small groups. Insurgents. Actually, I don't remember the difference between that one.
But what other kind of terrorists are there? Well, there's religious.
Yeah, typically what that's one of the ways they kind of do it is by what their purpose is.
What group is like a political? That be?
Well, there's all kinds. I mean, if you really get into like, good golly, what would be a good example? I mean, if you really got into like the what was it?
Well, it's got to be political. Well, like
Yeah, lone wolf kind of thing. Yeah, not attached to anything or anything like that.
Yeah.
Or even if you think about like the some of the other political plots that have gone on, like they had the one that was it Michigan? There was way too many federal agents involved, but you had a few people who actually wanted to go after. Yeah. And it was basically, yeah, there's too many people there, but
Didn't have Gretchen.
yeah, yeah, that was a governor, which, yeah, yeah, and so you get all kinds of stuff. All right, so here's where they get into it. So they say guerrilla, attack military, police, other officials. Here, you get groups, armed uprisings, and then full on war. So it's like, where we're at, well, that's a good question. If I said, ooh, give me an example of a good terrorist.
What?
A good terrorist. Give me a good terrorist example, not religious.
Ted
Not
Kaczynski.
Kaczynski. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. And so you think about all the fear that person ensued, all that fear that they caused. Kaczynski, the Unabomber.
He was a good terrorist.
Well, he's not as in good, but as in like a good example kind of thing. It's like long time involved kind of thing. Think of the fear, that direction of it, right?
Think about a good terrorist. I think Robin, that was ancient.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you do have those that are doing it for good reasons. Like if we were talking about like war-torn areas and that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, the different contexts.
Well, against the Nazis, I guess.
Or even like I think we mentioned earlier, Snowden. Technically, it's like what that person did there isn't terrorism. It would be treason because they disclosed a whole bunch of evidence about was it stellar wind, bulk collection of data on people. And it's like you're notifying the people that the government's basically building cases against them by capturing every bit of information that they can. It's like, yeah, okay, that one we can understand that appeal to higher authorities, I guess. Some of those you can't. Like if I said actually, I think I got this in the email too. Don't want to pop over. I have more links in this email or no, I got that one. All right, so we'll say edu threat. Oh, I know that. Let's do it this way then. Edu threat tag.
So
Boom.
good education, okay, is like if somebody like shoots up a college or something like that, that's terrorism, but what is that considered?
Well, usually what if there was like the mass shooter type of thing, it becomes more of the terrorism stuff if they're doing it for more than just, I guess, their own personal. Because most of them, what it is they're doing it because, yeah, so they got a name kind of thing. It's like they're doing it for their own name. It's not really so much about the terrorism as it is their name kind of thing. If it's associated with groups, that kind of stuff, then maybe terrorism. I mean, you still classify if they're doing it for themselves as terrorism, but not the same kind of thing. This I bring up because FBI created a threat to track harassment of educators. Why? This is related to school boards, right? And so this would have been 3 years ago. Basically, what happened was school had done something to hide a criminal student in the midst that led to a couple students being raped, and people were upset about that. And so that board meeting did not go well, and there was some hostility there. As a result, the school board members themselves went and sent a letter to the FBI to get all of those people investigated as terrorists. They said they were not treated as terrorists, but they were investigated as such, right? And so it's like, is who's in charge here? Well, for what purpose is this? Is this just flexing of muscles to show who's got power here, or is this something real? It's not apparent right at the start. And so we've got a whole bunch of stuff going on in our society right now related to this kind of stuff. Nope. All right, brief history of terrorism, reign of terror. That's going to be, was that Robespierre? Yeah. Russian Revolution, pre-world. These are all just some examples, and by no means a full history, but there you go there. Okay. Political terrorism, here's where you get the different types of terrorism. And you have some that are also like quasi-terrorism. It's not really fitting into any one of these types of things. So political, revolutionary, nationalist, retributive, state-sponsored, then lone actor. Okay, evolutionary. And here's where it gives you a little bit more on each of those. Right? Revolutionary, replace existing government. Right? Political terrorist. Oppose the terrorist political ideology, deem terrorists as outsiders who must be destroyed. Eco terrorist environment, yeah. And so a big part of this is breeding range stamps. I don't care. ALF, animal rights activists kind of thing. I don't care about that. What's this flashing? Get rid of that. Pink. Okay. And so
So eco terrorists actually tried to kill people.
uh
I know they do.
Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, was an eco terrorist.
was he? I didn't know that. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's interesting. I'm not so familiar with any real eco terrorists. Like usually when it
They
comes to
blow up dams. They put devices in trees where if you chainsaw them, the chainsaw will, like, the chain will explode and whip back on the
ooh,
person
okay.
using it. Yeah, they kill people. They're pretty serious. They're not just like hippies.
I
I
did
mean,
not.
they are, but hippies with bombs.
Yeah, I did not know that. I've been more in the here's where government's redefining these things out, and they're actively doing that. And it's one of those things that's the definitions and how we treat these issues shouldn't change as different administrative structures or not structures and personnel are put into place kind of thing as we have changeover in elections and all that kind of stuff. It's like we should not be seeing these things manifest in the way that we are, because what you see right there is very quickly we've already had some very serious problems with that one in just really recent times. And so basically what you end up with is, if you go back up here to the political crime stuff, all this stuff, what it does is it questions the legitimacy of the institution, of the whole country, the government organization itself. I'm out of time. Okay, well, we'll wrap up. And so everything that's going on right now, it's like just keeps pulling at the seams of this country. And so it's just super curious to see how it's manifesting. If you look at those the states that join Texas, you start to see where those splits are. And then if you start looking at well, as things move forward, it's like, how far does this go? I mean, they talk about that right there. If I said, ooh, I'm thinking about executive orders. This one's off topic. I'll show you this one real quick. I'll let you go. Executive orders. Mormons. Here's one. Executive order number 44 out of Missouri in 1838. Basically what this one allowed, right here, to show you exactly how far executive orders can go. This was an extermination order that people actually followed in the 1800s, right? And so the limitations for where people place these things and what they will abide by, there are some scary limits there, guys. And this isn't that long ago, right? And this one's just straight on religious. This is just religious. This isn't even something as serious as these people are violent, like what we're dealing with now. And so I'll leave you guys with that one, and we'll pick up with this topic next class. And did you guys like this lesson? Kind of give you
Yeah, very
kind of a sit
interesting.
rep for where we're at right now before we delve really move into the textbook stuff a little bit more. And so with that, we'll sign off for today, and we'll pick up on Wednesday. All right. All right.
Take care,
Adios.
Dr. Hurst.
All right. Well, you guys take care, and I will see you in 2 days. Bye.